Hi there, welcome back. You don't have a server, however you do have a PC computer or a laptop and you would like to run Docker there. Well then this video is for you. You may ask, what is Docker? It is a tool that helps us to build and share and run applications in a simple and consistent way. How it works? It uses a method called containerization to build and add everything it needs, like code and libraries, into a single unit called a container. Once you have installed Docker, there are a lot of nice applications out there that you can run on your machine without having to install additional software on your computer. You run them in your Docker container. You may ask, what is a container? Think of it like a virtual server that you run inside your computer. And then inside there, you can run very nice applications. If you are studying computer science, or if you want to pursue a career in IT, then this video is for you. The type of experience you will get working with Docker in your computer is valuable, especially today when there's a high demand for people with cloud skills. Right, enough said. We are going to use a cheap PC computer. In there we have already installed Mint Linux or Linux Mint. The instructions for this video can be found in our blog. Please have a look down below for the link. Right, the first thing we need to do is to open the terminal. Now we need to do a sudo -su to become root. We are already root, but this is the command you will run. And then after that, we want to do a sudo apt update. Right, let's clear the screen. Now, depending on the version of Mint Linux that you are using in your PC or laptop, there will be two ways to install it. If you are using the older version of Mint Linux, you will run this command and press tab, and you will see there's a Docker IO and a Docker Compose. You want to install both. So this is the command you will run on an older version of Mint Linux. So if you are running a Mint Linux PC or laptop, then these were the commands we ran. So this is what you will run. However, if you are running an Ubuntu server, especially in Windows with a WSL Ubuntu, then these are the commands you will run. I normally don't like opening the instructions when I'm doing a video, but in this case, for your benefit, we need to do that so that you can see the instruction and how it works. So open the blog and we go to this section here, section 5, and we will now create a folder called Docker Training. And then we will open it. Now go back to the instructions. We are now going to run these commands here. So let's start with this one. We'll explain it. We are telling Docker to pull down an image from the Docker repository. The name of the image is Ubuntu and the version is latest. So this will bring down the latest version of Ubuntu server. Let's run it. Now it ran quickly because we were testing on this machine. In your case, it will take a few seconds, depending on your bandwidth. Then we will run this command and we will explain it to you. We want to list the images, so we run docker image ls. This is like the Linux ls command, and it will list all the images. And in our case, here is the Ubuntu's image. It is the latest version. Okay, the code is fairly new. It was created 2 weeks ago. And it's a very small file. Look, a 78 megabyte Ubuntu server. So this thing has been cut down to the bones. If you're running these commands from a Windows terminal, you will run this command even in PuTTY. However, because the laptop we are using to create this video is also running Mint Linux, we will run this command. So we will copy this and paste it, and I will explain it. So paste the command and let's see. We are telling Docker to run this image. You see there we're specifying the image, Ubuntu latest, which is this image. What we are doing is with a -it, we are telling it run the image and connect us to that image in the terminal. And what kind of session do we want in the terminal? We want a bash session. When I run this command, I will be automatically connected to that server. And to prove that, I'm going to do two things. First of all, I'm going to say, who am I? And because it's a server, I should come back as root, yes. To prove that this is a Ubuntu server, by listing the home folder, we will see something. So let's do that, ls-l/home. And we see that there's an Ubuntu user in there. So that tells us that this is an Ubuntu server. And because of that, we can even do an update. So let's say sudo. We don't need to because we are root. So just apt update. Run this. Right. Now, when I exit, it will destroy the Docker container. You see, we are running Ubuntu server inside a Docker container now. So let's exit. There is a command to display Docker containers that are running, and that is docker ps. You see, there's no container running. If I go -a, then it tells me these were the images that were running, but they're not running now. So that's fine. Clear the screen. Let's go back to the instructions. So this is what we've done. We can remove a container, so let's run this command, copy. First of all, let's display. Now let's paste this command. And we want to delete this one. The one we just ran. And we also want to delete this one. So let's do that. And if we run ps-a again, you'll see there'll only be one. And let's delete this one as well. Clear the screen. Right. Let's continue. We will now create a folder called Ubuntu. Copy this command, paste, and let's open that folder. You will create a compose file if you are using the newer version of Docker. However, if you are using the older version of Docker, you will create a Docker compose YML file. So in this machine, this is the command we will run. However, in your WSL server and in your Ubuntu servers, you will run the other command. So let's do this and then copy the content. Please notice there's a difference between this compose file and this compose file. So make sure you copy the correct one for your version of Docker. And we should now be able to say Docker compose up. If you are running the new version, you will just say Docker space compose, but with the old version like that. But with the older version, you will run it like this. Now you will run Docker compose up, but please remember -D. If you are running the older version, then this is the command you will run. If you are running the newer version, that is the command you will run. But make sure that you run this in detached mode. So -D. Now that we've done that, let's go back to our instructions. In the Docker compose file, we have given the container name Ubuntu_server in both. So now we are going to run this command here. Docker exec. If you are running this command in a Windows laptop, you will run this command winpty or in PuTTY. However, if you are running this on a Linux machine or in your Ubuntu WSL server running in Windows, then you will run the command like this. And let's explain it. Earlier we ran the docker run command. This created the image, connected us, and when we exited, it destroyed the image. In this case, the image is already running, so we can use this command to connect to it. Also note, IT tells us we want to connect with a terminal and we want to get a bash terminal. So that's what we are going to get. Let's run this. Similar to what we did earlier. Now we're going to show you a feature that we have here. If you go to our instructions, you'll see we created a volume. Now inside our laptop, we will have a folder called data. Inside the Docker container, the Ubuntu server, we're going to have a folder created opt/data. So let's have a look at that. There it is. I'm now going to create a file to prove that I was there. I will run the touch command. And let's list it ls-l. There's the file I've just created. Now let's exit this container. If you type exit. And now to prove that the Docker container is still running, we're going to run docker ps. Just ps. And there you are. You see we are running Ubuntu latest. So there it is. And now if we look in this folder, we should have a data folder. And if we list inside there, Nico was here. There's the file. So we have created that file inside the container and we are now accessing it outside the container. Now this is the mechanism that we use when we run databases in our Docker containers so that we can be able to back up the data. Cheers. That was a good tea. So let's go back to our instructions. So here's a summary of the commands we ran. We ran docker image ls. We deleted the image. Remember, we deleted the image. Docker image rm and then the image ID. We ran docker ps and that showed only the active running containers. When we ran this command docker ps-a, it showed us all the containers, even those that were not active or running. So that's how we could list a container, we could stop a container, and we could delete a container. When you're running Docker containers using the Docker compose commands, then you don't do Docker container rm and Docker container stop. We use these commands over here. So we will say docker compose stop and then docker compose down. Down is the equivalent of delete. So let's run that. So let's say docker compose stop. And this is the correct way to do it. You stop the container. Now it's backed up the files for you gracefully. And then you can then say docker compose down. And now it has destroyed this container completely. So if we go docker ps, it's gone. We should still have an image, but that's fine. We didn't delete the image. One of the benefits of docker compose down, it works on the container, but it doesn't destroy the image. So you still have the image in your machine. Let's have a look at the commands we ran. By running the image ls, we were able to list the image. We were also able to delete the image with the rm. It's like Linux. Rm to delete a folder, ls to list the folder. And then docker ps, that was so that we could see the active containers. Docker ps-a, we could use that to see all the containers, even those that are down. Because Docker doesn't delete the containers until you tell it to docker container rm, that command. Remember, always stop and then remove, especially when you're working with databases and database servers, and like here with the Linux server. Stop the server, then remove. But don't run these commands when you have used docker compose up to bring up your server. You need to use these commands. And what's nice, the docker compose down command, although the docker compose down command destroys your container, it does not destroy your backup folder and your data. So you'll still have the local folder there on your machine. Let's have a look. We've destroyed it. So let's see, ls-l. There it is. And data. And this file is still there, you see. So we have destroyed the container, but preserved our data. And then we put these together because they both open your Docker container in a terminal. However, there's a difference. When you say Docker run and you connect to the terminal, you're connected to your container. The minute you say exit, the container gets destroyed. Docker destroys that container. However, if you already have your container running as you use the docker compose up-d command, then you will run docker exec. That will connect you to an existing running container. And one last thing, if you want to look at the logs, you can say docker logs and then specify the container ID. Now this can be very useful if you are working with microservices, so that you can go in and look at the logs of the microservice. We trust you found this useful. Please give us a like. Please subscribe to our channel, as we haven't reached our target yet. And now we have a tradition in this channel. We will greet you in 5 languages. Thank you, dude. Baie dankie, tot ziens. Grazie mille a me, ciao. Jesus in Naderfe. Auf Wiedersehen, mein Freund. Namaste, namaskar. Domo arigato tomodachi. Sayonara.